Whether you have a skin interest, a skin query, a skin trauma, or skin disease, I warmly welcome you to Heal Thy Skin, a podcast brought to you by Derm Health Co. I'm Marni, dermal clinician, dermoscopist, and your podcast host. Skin is deeper than beauty, and our mission is to build the largest platform of specialised practitioners focused on skin health and skin empowerment. Join me each week where we go deep into the skin and beyond to hear stories and education from leading practitioners on a journey of skin health. Hello, welcome to the Heal Thy Skin podcast. I'm Marni, your host, and today I'm not speaking with just one, but two incredible rosacea advocates, Bethany Barnes and Kathryn of the Rosy Club, to commemorate April, which is Rosacea Awareness Month. They're the founding members of the Rosy Club Instagram account, and it's an account really to bring skin positivity, rosacea awareness, and share their personal experience with rosacea. Both of them have been living with rosacea for many years, and they share their daily skincare routines, they share their daily experiences and flare-ups. I started by asking the girls what they thought was the biggest misconception about rosacea.
So I feel like the biggest misconception about rosacea is the fact that people say, or they make comments, they go, oh, it's just red skin. Oh, you've just got sensitive skin. People tend to make the assumption that it's not that bad, whereas that's really not the case. Rosacea can be really severe and can actually be quite disabling in some cases. In fact, as we know, rosacea is a clinical skin condition in its own right. However, it's not often acknowledged or appreciated by the general public.
I agree with Kathryn. The misconception that we both discussed a lot is that it's not that bad, and family and friends saying, oh, it's not that bad. But some people on the internet, for instance, who know nothing about it, saying that is not only inaccurate, completely inaccurate, but it can be really damaging to us and to other people that suffer with it, because rosacea doesn't only affect you physically, so it physically burns your skin in some cases, but it's also mentally and emotionally it affects your life. And non-professionals, people who don't know anything about skincare, who claim that rosacea is just red skin, as Kathryn said, or accuse sufferers of being dramatic. I have felt so guilty all my life growing up with this condition. I've been told I should be thankful that it's not worse, but whatever condition that you have, whatever condition your skin is in, you have a right to feel how you feel about it, and that your feelings are valid. You can feel how you feel. It shouldn't be disputed or challenged by people on the internet.
That's really interesting. We recently did a podcast episode on toxic positivity, and some of those exact statements came up in that podcast. So, whether it's this misconception that people don't realize that it's a medical condition and it can cause a lot of distress for the person, but also, is it this strange human behavior where they're trying to show empathy, but kind of missing the mark a little bit as well?
Yeah.
So Tell us, what is rosacea? What causes it? Triggers flare-ups from your own experience?
So in general, rosacea is a genetic-based skin condition, but it's generally categorized by persistent redness and highly irritable skin around the facial area. Redness and symptoms of rosacea can vary between individuals, and there's actually 4 different subtypes of rosacea. This kind of depends on what your redness is like, what your skin texture is like, and where your rosacea is found on your face, whether that's your eyes, your nose, or mainly on your cheeks. Although rosacea is passed on through genetics, just because one family member has it doesn't necessarily mean another will. For example, Beth has rosacea, but her mum doesn't, but both my mum and I do suffer from rosacea. Moreover, the causes of rosacea vary. For example, Beth and I, we've had rosacea our whole lives, but many women develop after pregnancy. That's an example. Many women develop it after pregnancy, such as my mum, and lots of people develop it later on in life in their mid-50s or after the menopause. However, although I've mentioned the menopause and pregnancy, this doesn't mean that rosacea is just about women. Men also suffer from rosacea. In fact, some studies have revealed that men are twice as likely to suffer from type 3 rosacea, which refers to the swelling and inflammation of the nose area and the hardening of the skin.
Additionally to genetics, if we're talking about flare-ups, for instance, flare-ups can be caused by, oh my goodness, a variety of factors. Some of the most common ones are stress, embarrassment, alcohol, spicy foods, weather, like extremities of cold or heat, exercise, and chemicals within skincare products that can cause flare-ups and allergic reactions. Our triggers, it is important to note that our triggers are as unique as we are. They are completely individual. And so, for example, stress is a key trigger for both Kathryn and I. So our faces can flare up at the slightest embarrassing moment or in the heat of an argument, for instance. However, where we differ is that Kathryn experiences more adverse effects from alcohol. So if she's drinking alcohol, she will have flare-ups, or if alcohol is used in her skincare products, it will make her skin flare. Whereas for me, my biggest would probably be a sensitivity to colder weather or really extreme temperatures, so extreme cold or extreme heat. So basically, our triggers are as unique as our skin types are, which is no surprise.
Yeah, that's really interesting and difficult for someone that may have just been diagnosed, or maybe they're not yet diagnosed with rosacea, because they might not correlate whatever that trigger is with what's happening with their skin. And if they're not aware that they've got rosacea, it could be quite confusing. Like, this is completely random, but in fact, it is caused from a specific trigger. So tell us more about your stories.
So I've always suffered from extremely sensitive skin. Even as a baby, my mum couldn't use certain wet wipes on me because she just had this chronic fear that I would come up in this red rash, especially all over my face. But just before puberty, I and my family noticed that I had a lot of persistent redness on my face and I would flare up quite often. But nobody in my family knew what rosacea was. Nobody had ever heard of it at that point. So at that time, everyone just said, oh, Kathryn, you just got a bit of sensitive skin. Just use hypoallergenic skincare products. You'll be fine. But that really didn't help, because all throughout my teen years, I constantly battled with my skin and I was always on the hunt for the right products. And even if I didn't have what I thought was an allergic reaction straight away, I often developed an allergic reaction over time, which meant anything that I thought was suitable for my skin would kind of blow up and come back in my face, which was just not ideal. It was actually only when I met Beth 5 years ago and I spoke to her about her rosy skin and she told me about rosacea, and I came to realize that I must have this too. And from there, I learned that I had suffered from type 1 rosacea. And this really helped explain not only my flare-ups, but also my textured skin and the way that I've got quite abnormally large pores on my nose and my cheeks. So since then, I've just learned more about my skin, what works for me, the products, and also my triggers. And that really helps me navigate life a lot easier.
Similar to Kathryn, actually, I also have type 1 rosacea, but my symptoms differ to hers in that my skin's texture is quite smooth generally, but I do suffer with persistent redness that's pretty much 24 hours a day. I've had it all my life, just like Kathryn, as long as I can remember. I remember pictures of me when I was little with really big rosy cheeks, and it was kind of cute, but then I thought, I've outgrown this cuteness now, and I felt like I suffered with confidence as I entered my teen years. So as much as my skin is normal to those around me who I love and my friends and Kathryn, it remains a major cause of anxiety for me in terms of relationships and meeting new people. So I've had a really emotional journey with rosacea. This is not a generalization by any means, as lots of rosacea sufferers will not experience a severe emotional reaction like I did. But I would say personally, my skin has been probably one of the main contributors to my anxiety and the stress in my life. And that's just my reality. The pressure it has put on my relationship with my family and friends, the strain it's put on my mental health is exhausting. It's really exhausting. But this is not, obviously, as I say, a universally felt experience. You're not necessarily destined to suffer if you have rosacea, not at all, but it is okay if you do. I want to make that clear, that it's okay to not feel good enough, and it's okay to sometimes hate your skin, because as you mentioned in your previous podcast about toxic positivity, there's this sense of I must love my skin and I must love myself, and it can become really overwhelming, and it's okay to feel vulnerable and to have those sad days. But recently, with Kathryn's help, I must say, I've come to terms with it. I found beauty in it, and I'm really working pretty much every day on self-love and self-acceptance. But it is an ongoing journey. It's not something you achieve. It's not something that it's definitely a journey, and we're all on it. And I feel like with Kathryn's help, yeah, I can navigate and I know where I'm going now. So that's good.
So wonderful that you've both found each other. And Beth, that's so challenging because you mentioned that one of your triggers is stress. So, this, I'm stressed about my skin, I get a flare up. I'm feeling challenged with my relationships, I get a flare up. It's like this, this cycle that would be really vicious cycle that would be really difficult to navigate. And then I can imagine that kind of anger towards yourself, like, stop being angry about your skin, stop being stressed about your skin, you're just making it worse. So it's just this circle. It's really fantastic to hear that you've been able to kind of find your tribe, and through that you're finding ways to really reduce that stress on yourself as well. So tell me, both of you were diagnosed at different times, but tell me how your lives changed after the diagnosis, because obviously before it's like, what is this? What's this trigger? This is kind of random. But then often after you get a diagnosis, especially if it's the correct one, you can start implementing changes in your life. But sometimes that can be a challenge in itself, because then you have to accept kind of what you've been given as well.
Yeah, well, this one's actually quite an interesting one, because neither Beth or I have ever had a formal diagnosis from a GP or a dermatologist. Because as I mentioned earlier, it was only in my early 20s that I even learned what rosacea was. As a young person and as a teenager, I was kind of made to feel that my skin condition wasn't serious enough to seek professional help. People just went, "Oh, Kathryn, you've got sensitive skin. Don't waste a doctor's time with that," kind of like pish posh kind of style. However, when I learned that I had rosacea and I learned that it was type 1, that was really beneficial for me, because that label helped me personally seek the appropriate skincare that I needed. It helped me narrow down my product range, which in itself was fantastic, because that meant I was finding less things that I was allergic or reactive to. So my skin improved in general, which was amazing. But I also felt like learning that I had something called rosacea and having a label to that, I found incredibly validating. In social situations, it made a lot of things easier, because before I had rosacea, I would get red or I'd get embarrassed and people would be like, "Whoa, are you okay? Like, your skin is so red." And I'd have to go, yeah, it's just me. And then my skin would get even more red. But now I've got rosacea. And so someone says, "Oh, Kathryn, your skin's a bit red. You all good?" And I go, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it. It's just my rosacea. It's pretty chill. It's pretty natural. Just ignore it. It's just a bit of me now." And that's really helped with my confidence